Welcome to the show. Today we have Kyron Bowen, Bullseye Bowen, I should have said. Welcome to the show.
What's up, my man?
So I'm super excited. This is actually the first time MMA Fancast is doing a video chat. So thank you for being my
Yeah,
first on that. So
hey, no
hopefully this
doubt.
goes swimmingly well. But you are fighting exactly a week from now, which we're recording this Tuesday night. And in exactly a week, you're going to be fighting on week 4 of the Tuesday night contender series, which is exciting. Let's start there. When did this come together? When did you know you were getting on the show? And how excited are you for it?
I'd say came together maybe about 2 months ago. I was already scheduled to fight, and then I had us fighting this weekend, and like 3 days before that fight, they offered me, and so I had to say yeah. And luckily, I knocked that guy out in the first round too, so I came out healthy, ready for the next one. And as far as excitement, I'm just zoned in, man. I'm ready. I'm to get it done. I'll be a little bit more excited at the end. I try to, keep the beast in, but I'm sure I'll go crazy immediately after.
Of course, of course. I actually was surprised to see that you had fought in June, which was
Yeah.
in Oklahoma. And so
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about how that worked with the pandemic. Obviously, most fights have been stopped. So how did it come together that you were able to fight in Oklahoma for the MMA Extreme Fighting Championships?
Man, Oklahoma's just been great about it, man. They've been allowed, some shows to keep going. They allowed MMA to they added a few guidelines, but still allowed us to compete and stay active. Yeah, man, it's at first, everybody's questions were in the air, but we went to another show in Oklahoma City actually, and it was smooth sailing. So we decided, to try to do it in a little smaller town, and they put the show together and got me on it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And like you said, you finished, you had a knockout in round 1. How much in the back of your mind was there, hey, if I get hurt or even if you win but get
Mm.
hurt, did you have that thought going in? How did any of that work?
Oh man, it took me for a ride, let me tell you. But when it's time to fight, I just, I'm able to always to lock it in and zone in. But building up to it, it took me all over, man. There's, a million things going through my head. But when it comes to fight, I'm a fairly safe fighter. I know how to protect myself. And yeah, it came out clean. But yeah, driving me crazy, man. It was wild.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just the pressure.
Did your coaches tweak anything? Did they kind of say like maybe take a technique away or say avoid that just as far as risk goes?
No, not necessarily, man. I'm 13 fights into my pro career, and I've luckily never been seriously injured due to, I would say, partially to my style. I started off in real authentic Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm real able to defend myself to an extent. But yeah, man, there weren't any changes up. They just told me, hey, it's on the line, man. Stay safe. Let's get out of there. Nice and easy.
And of course, it's nice that you got that win. Do you think it works better now to be on a bit of a roll versus not having fought since October because of COVID? Like, let's say June didn't happen. Do you think this puts you better to be fighting next week since you've had such a recent fight?
I think, it gives me, I'm still a little fresh, man, but me and my guys, we live this lifestyle. I don't really take any days off, whether I fought or not. I was still in the gym getting hard rounds in. So, I didn't, I'm always fresh, man, ready for it.
Great. Now, you had mentioned your pro career, and obviously prepping for this, I looked into it a little bit, and you're on a 7-fight win streak, which is incredible. But now I'm going to bring up a little bit of the rocky start to your career, just so I can get your feedback. So
Oh, yeah.
you know this, but you started out in your first 6 fights, you had 2 wins and 4 losses, and then as soon as that first 6 fights were over, you've been on a 7-fight win streak ever since, and obviously your total record now is 9-4. So when you look at those first 6 fights combined, what do you think that process was like for you?
Growth, man. I took those, I like to consider them championship lessons, early in my career, where some of these guys, I see them making those mistakes I made in the first few. You know, it just worked out for me. Honestly, obviously on paper, it doesn't look the best, but when I get in that ring, it shows now. I don't fret. I mean, put me in the worst positions. I've lost before. What are you gonna do? Do it to me again? I'm here and risk it all.
Absolutely. And so what kind of came together? Because it is about a learning process. So obviously that's part of it. I remember when Anderson the Spider Silva, before his decline, he was smashing everybody, but he always had those 2 losses back in the day.
Yeah.
But that wasn't where he was then. So what do you think kind of turned the corner for you? And obviously 7-fight win streak is big. There's guys fighting on the Dana White Contender Series with only one win streak. So how did you kind of put together such a nice win streak?
Well, my coach told me one thing, and it changed from there. All he said was, "Stop trying to submit people."
Is that really it?
That was it, man. He said, "Hey, no more submissions. You always get great positions. You do your thing, but let's throw more punches. Let's get more violent, man. Let's get in there and cause some blood. I'm tired of seeing you choke people out. I want to see you knock them out." And since then, I'm just knocking them out. That's all it was, just a flip of the switch, man. My coach has been in the UFC, the top of the level, and he just told me what I needed to do. They like violence, and we just honed in on that and mixed in with my jiu-jitsu style, my good grappling, and with just more ground and pound, more viciousness, standing up. And that's literally what it was, man. He said, "No more submitting people. I only want you to knock people out." And it only took a couple times to find that confidence.
And then you've just been rolling since then, which is cool. Shout out, obviously, to your coach, and also recognizing that MMA is really all about finding the style that works for you. And that's what's valuable there. And so, speaking of style, you're a tall, longer guy, and you're fighting at 185, but you're also fought at welterweight. So where are you on that balance of weight?
I walk around, like 182 right in the middle. So it's easy for me to make 170, and it's not anything to drink a little bit of water and make 85, So personally, I wish I could fight both, keep alternating. I have a title at 185 in St. Louis and a 70 title down here in Oklahoma. So, personally, I wish I could fight both, but we're looking at 70, obviously, the smaller, whatever weight I can make, the better. But it's up to me. I like fighting at the weight I walk around at.
Yeah, and to go in that a little bit, because I think even just in the last 5 years, guys like Robert Whitaker bumped up from 70 to 85 and went on a tear. Obviously, he's since lost the title, but he was a great example. Even Cowboy Cerrone did it, said he'd never go back to 55, then he went back to 55. So, obviously weight cutting's a big deal. This fight is at 85. Was this your preference, given that this is your big audition to Dana White?
I don't have a preference, man. They could have asked me at heavyweight, and I'd have been like, "Hell yeah, I just like to fight, bro." That's just what it is. Outside of the weight classes, it's still 2 men with 2 hands, and the 8 limbs, whatever you want to call it, man. That's all I see it as, no matter the size. It's just another fight, man.
Well, speaking of the 8 limbs reference of Muay Thai, and you said that you come from a jiu-jitsu background. What was it like learning, let's say, Muay Thai, and how has that connected to what you're doing now?
Well, I actually been training Muay Thai just as long as jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they've always kind of gone hand in hand, but just the favorite style was always grappling.
Okay, all right. So good that you've trained. When you think about MMA currently, most of the people coming into the UFC have trained mutual things. They mixed everything up to beginning. Obviously, We're 25 years into the UFC. When did you first realize that you were going to need to co-train or mix train versus some of the older style when it was just one style?
I'd like to say when I took my first amateur loss, I went 4-0 on a win streak, and then on my 5th fight, I lost to a wrestler just purely because I was trying to submit him off my back. He didn't damage me too much. I controlled it, but obviously he's on top, so that's what it scored from. And from that moment, I knew, okay, we got to change this up. We got to get standing up more and just stay on top.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I think it's hard to say a weakness of a pure like Gracie style jiu-jitsu, but that is a weakness if you're off your back too much.
And in a time limit, yes.
And in a time limit. And I would also say without the gi, there's a lot of options, as with collar ties and chokes that can come up from the bottom that can work and at least help you get out of the situation. And even a legend like Damian Maia, who I would say is obviously the most successful sort of pure jiu-jitsu guy, he doesn't spend a ton of time on his back. He spends more time trying to put people in bad positions.
Yes, sir. He understands the game, man. That's just kind of like the transition I made. I'd like to think I'm a little more standing up, striking favored now, but nonetheless, I still got it in my back pocket, but I know what to do with it now.
Absolutely. And given the fact that you're going to be participating on Dana White Contender Series, how closely have you been following the other fights? Are you picking up anything that might be a pattern in Dana White? Because the Dana White Contender Series aren't as seasoned vets as maybe people that are fighting, Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic just happened to UFC 252 had kind of the best. Are you looking at your fellow competition?
Oh yeah, for sure. I just literally got done watching the Contender Series tonight. Shout out my boy Matt Dixon, man. He's a great fighter out of Oklahoma, just over the border. Took a tough loss, but nonetheless, man, I'm watching them every Tuesday, and what I'm seeing, man, is just I don't know what these guys do in the gym if they don't spar hard. I'm not saying everybody should, but I'm seeing them almost like a little timidness, like they're worried about it, man. I'm not gonna say they're holding back, but I don't see that full release.
Sure, that is something, I think overall the Dana White Contender Series is wonderful. I think it's a more pure series than, let's say, a Tough, where it's all about the drama. There's no drama. You get to train with your own gym. Compare that a little bit. What would it have been like, do you think, if you did 8 weeks on Tough versus being able to be at your home gym and train with your typical guys?
Um, it just on that one, man. I don't know if Tough pays, so that would be a little different.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was 8 weeks getting paid to go train, man, that'd be a blast. Go train some of the other top levels in the world. But man, I got some of the best guys in the world in my gym, man. So I'm pretty confident I could take it all the way to the top with just the people around me without going off to these, $1,000 camps and paying people thousands of dollars hold mitts. I'd rather pay my boys that have been there and done it. But both of my coaches have been at the literal top of this game.
Mm-hmm. And because I love bringing up Stipe, he's from Pittsburgh. He's from Cleveland. And one thing,
shout out Stipe.
Absolutely, we got a fanboy on Stipe a little bit, but one of the things that he's always made clear was that he was going to stay in his gym from Cleveland. That really wasn't strong styles, not really well known. They're not really, they're not a huge gym where people fly in from around the world. So what's it like seeing that at the best level, people can be productive and champion level just with the gym they have around them? What confidence does that give you to say, hey, when you make it in the UFC, you're going to keep the gym the way it is now?
I love it, man. It gives me major confidence. It just feels like reality, man. People think they need all this and that, but really all they need is some good training partners and this and that, and they get outside of that, they go spend all this money, and then they end up, giving so much away and come back broke, and they wonder what happened, man. And man, you just gotta get the right people around. You gotta go up there with the family and not abandon that, in my opinion.
Well, sure, and obviously fighters have different experiences depending on what's going on in their life, but I do think a consistency can make a big difference. We've seen it, obviously. Man. Right, and so let's talk a little bit more about your coaches. You've been mentioning them, but you haven't mentioned their names. So let's bring their names in and kind of like, what their styles are, what their experiences have been.
Well, one of my coaches actually is Brian Foster. He's a coach / teammate, but Brian's fought in the UFC all over the world, man. He has, I think, 10 or 50 professional fights now. He's fought in literally everywhere, and his finish rate, I think, is like 98%, dude. And then just phenomenally, man. I still think he's one of the best in the world besides me, But and then Mark, do you know who Mark Fiore is?
Say the last name again.
Fiore.
I don't think, I probably should know, but it's not coming off the top of my head.
So we were at the UFC Apex Center, right? And they have a Legends wall where there's Hoist, GSP, all these guys, and my coach is probably the only one in the world that could say he's coached against and beat 3 of the 5 best fighters in the world: GSP, Hoist Gracie, BJ Penn. Mark Fiore was actually Matt Hughes' coach throughout his whole title run.
There you go.
Yeah, man, he's coached Robbie Lawler, the Hit Squad. He was, if you remember that name at all, he was actually he was the head coach of there. So, and he's coming directly to help me reach the top now. It's like I don't have all these distractions. He's here for me, man. And having somebody like that behind you, you don't even question it. He knows what it takes.
No, yeah, that's incredible. It's also since we were kind of fanboying on State Bay a little bit, it's great to see that Matt Hughes is recovering very well.
Yeah, I just saw him this Saturday, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he came in. Yeah, he came to town, man, and we hung out for a little bit, and it was real cool, man. He is recovering real well. Still, got some good jokes in him, talks a little shit, but
Oh, that's
yeah,
it. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
it
That
is,
was,
man. It's so refreshing, man. He's such a good guy. It's happy to see him moving, getting
uh,
back to it.
yeah, absolutely. And I think they did a documentary on him, I think about a year ago, and it really brought up the fact that the best fight you'll ever have in your life is for what matters. It's not in the cage so much. It's the people around you, in his case, his wife, his kids, his life, so there's more important things going on than just what you do in the cage, obviously.
Your why, yes.
Right, exactly. The why matters. What you do matters. And so let's get to that a little bit. Why do you do MMA? What's kind of exciting, or what's kind of the meaning behind you getting in a cage?
Well, for me, it started with training, and then just wanted to change my life, man. I grew up in Springfield, Illinois, and that's just north of Matt Hughes' hometown. And I had, legends always training around me, and I see these guys literally changing their life. And I was just some punk, got kicked out of school and was like, shit, what am I gonna do now? So I ended up going to the gym, man, and realized, man, this could be your avenue to get it started to really change your life, so my siblings don't have to literally fight for a living, don't have to go through more, man. It's about the family, man. It's about the legacy and the future.
Well, that is a beautiful thing. I'm happy to hear that your story is taking you someplace that's great to see that. What have you learned the most about yourself in the journey of training and also competing, like self-discovery type things?
I've learned I'm relentless, man.
Mm-hmm.
In all aspects, not in just the violent aspects, but when it comes to getting something done, man, I'm very humble. I take my time. I try to learn as much as I can. I'm not afraid to ask questions, and it's given me so much confidence knowing that I'm forever in this growth process, man, and I want to stay there.
Absolutely. That's the classic expression. The journey is the destination, right? That there always has to be
yes.
appreciating the process and understanding that you're not finished learning, both as a fighter and as a person. Right. Absolutely. That's incredible there. Given what you mentioned about trying to be financially stable and all that, are you at the point where you're full-time training, or are you still having like a side job or a bivocational?
Man, dude, I've still been working, damn near full time throughout this camp, but I'm blessed enough to have a good job that also gives me time off for training. So
Okay.
I'm still making my money on my job, but it hasn't interfered with full time training. I'm still training 2 to 3 times a day, 5:30 a.m., 11 a.m., and 5:30 p.m. And most times I stayed till the 7 class, So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I'd say in that case that you're very blessed to be able to do both, because I think
Yeah, man.
at this stage in your fighting career, it's good to have what you could say guaranteed money or consistent money coming in, right? And that's something that's big. I was actually I was watching some stuff on Mighty Mouse, and he had already defended his belt in the UFC 3 times before he gave up his full-time job, which was crazy to think that he was at that level. But one of the reasons why he wasn't is because he's like, hey man, I can depend on this job. I can depend on my everyday job versus the fighting game can go up and down. So what do you think it'll take to be at the point where you feel comfortable going full time? Or are we not there yet?
Yeah, I mean, man, I feel like I'm full time now. I don't let work interfere too much, but I can't really say right now, man. I'm a workhorse. I'm an entrepreneur in all aspects. This is a job, and I also capitalize through personal training and, a bunch of privates, and outside of my job, I have probably like 4 or 5 different incomes, man. I'm always on it. Even if I wasn't working there, man, on my downtime between sessions, I'm figuring something out. Hey, what's up? Can we get some work in one way or another?
Sure, absolutely. And I was going to ask you a question about the way the UFC has gone with fighter sponsorships not being able to wear their own shorts, but I won't put that out there on you right now because you're trying to get in the UFC. But you do bring up the value of being creative and how you get income and how you run it as a business, and make yourself. You are the business. You're in the business of you, and you have to find ways to capitalize on that throughout your career, I think, in the best ways possible. Just like when everybody was talking about DC retiring, we know he's going to go into broadcasting. That's a business he can do. Some people go into other types of fields. So it's obviously too early. I know Al Quinta is a great example of somebody who went into real estate and felt like that was more consistent, making him more money. So like there's a lot out there. And you mentioned the word entrepreneur. So I guess this is an off-fight topic, but who's your favorite entrepreneur? Do you watch Shark Tank? Are you an Elon Musk?
Mark Cuban, my dude, man. He's a gangster, bro. Yeah.
So
he keeps it all the way real, man. He's raw and to the point, and he just seems like a real dude that I could have a conversation with. I study him quite a bit, and since his college days of getting his own company started, all the where he's at now, man. And he just kept it real the whole way. He never seems fake, and he's talking, he sounds relatable, and that's what it is, man. I'm trying to keep it real throughout the whole way. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything about it.
Well, that's great. And actually, Mark Cuban has had an interest in MMA on and off over the years. At one point, he was going to start his own. He was going to start his own competitor towards the UFC. It never really worked out. But very interesting you brought that up. And it's also great. I think one of the reasons why I like doing these podcasts are because MMA fighters are athletes. They're professional athletes, just like, let's say, baseball, but they don't always have that same image. So how important is it for you over the next so many years of your career to kind of continue to bring, I'd say, the revolution of fighters that are more business-minded fighters versus just the Chuck Liddells who want to throw down in the street?
Yeah, man, it's 100% vital, man. Yeah, we're all my professional athletes, but at the same time, it's not like we went to college for this. Yeah, our college was in the gym,
Right.
so it's a little bit more harder for us to stay educated and get on top of things, as as far as keeping income outside of fighting going. But it's so necessary. You have to as a fighter. You got to capitalize on your own rise to get other things going. You can't just can't's a strong word, but I just don't think you should rely just on fighting.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. Some people might just rely on fighting, but
and then you lose a few fights. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get too tied up to one or two fights going one way or going the other. So that's great. Speaking of fights going one way or the other, you've got this nickname Bullseye, which is wonderful. What are your predictions or your mindset going in to this fight a week from today?
First round knockout.
First round knockout. Well, I love the prediction. It's great.
First round. I don't see it going any other way, man. If it's not a first round knockout, it's a second round knockout. It's not a second round, it's a third round. But we're not going to the judges either way.
And what's that like knowing, because every once in a while this comes up at the UFC level where you can see the last 30 seconds or 20 seconds of a round, somebody's just trying to sort of, get to the bell and somebody else is trying to finish it. What mindset do you have when you're down to the wire, and how do you keep that finishing mindset?
It's never over, man. I've been in the worst positions in the first round, got up, got to finish. Worst positions in the second and third. I've been in the deep waters and came out. So I've literally been there to know it's possible. I've had 20 seconds left in a fight, losing is for my 185 title. 20 seconds left in the fight, and it was all on, hey, let's make it happen, bud. And, I exploded, let's go in my own mind and made it happen. So, yeah, man.
Well, that's a great experience that you had. What's the expression? You don't have to tell me it's easy. Just tell me it's possible. Like you were saying, it's not that it's been easy, but you know that it's possible to change a fight completely on its head.
Yeah, man, it's fighting. It's the reality of it. If you think it's one-sided, then hey, be careful, bud. Don't get so sure. I say first round knockout, but I know the reality of this. I know the reality of this could happen, that could happen.
Sure.
But I know what I want to do and what I'm going to do my best to do, and it's that.
Well, absolutely, and it's been incredible having you on the show. Let's get to thank yous and shout outs. You mentioned your coaches, but I always think it's important. You'll see that on the mic in UFC fights. Some of the guys that stay humble and focused are always quick to thank people, and some of the guys, let's say Conor McGregor, for example, but I'm just picking on him. Some of the guys that kind of get into maybe an unhealthy way of thinking, it becomes not gratitude filled. So who are you?
Yeah.
Who are your big shout outs?
Man, my big shout outs are to everybody that shows me love, man. Shout out to Ed, shout out to my lady, shout out to my team, shout out to everybody around me, my mother especially, man. That's my lifeline. If I need confidence or questions, I ring her up, and then just like that, man, she brings me back to earth.
Well, that's beautiful. It's always great to give a shout out to your mom.
Shout out to you too, man. Shit.
Well, thanks. Thanks. But family connection, when you think about it, is there's something to be said for people in your life that support you for fighting, which is great. Your coaches, your teammates, but like a connection to your mom, she supports you in your life, whether it's fighting or not fighting. And I think that's sometimes, I'm thinking back to Cowboy Cerrone always talks about his grandma, right? That's his connection.
Yeah, I remember
his
that.
grandma. But it also shows it's like, because that's the person in his life that cares about him regardless of what he was doing. He could be doing anything to be his fan. So that's great that your mom's supportive of just you as a person. And I always think it's more important to care about who you are as a person. We've even seen that when you mentioned Matt Hughes. He talked about it post his accident, that he feels like, he's public with this, he feels like he became a person he didn't really like during his fighting career. And since the accident, he's been able to reflect, right? He's been able to reflect on who he is as a person. So shout out to him and his wife and his family and his recovery journey. But I think there's a lot that can be said for being connected to the people that matter in your life. So that's
where I'm most blessed at, man. It's like you said, Matt, and B and Mark, man, and those are the guys around me, the guys that have made those mistakes and are so vocal and honest with me that I get it. And even outside of that, that's where my heart is. So just to have that reassurance from them is just phenomenal, man.
Well, absolutely. It'll be exciting to see you get your 8th win in a row next week. That's what's going to be happening. You bring in the 8th win streak, keep that going. So we wish you the best next week, and hopefully we can have you on after the show to talk about your experience. It'd be great to catch up with you.
Yeah, man, I'd hope so, man. We'll talk about this first round knockout and, which one, which side it came from, which weapon it was. I can't wait for it.
Absolutely. I can't wait to do it. So thanks for being on the show. Everybody check out Kyron, the Bullseye. That's right. The Bullseye. There it is. Next week on Dana White Contender Series, week 4. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, let's chat soon.